Hey guys, hope you're doing well and having a good weekend. So I'm getting ready to put out my second treatment. I'm gonna do my second treatment for the year, my second pre-emergent round for the year. I figured give you an idea of what it is that I'm using in my solution in the tank itself. And as you can see, as I've mentioned before, I've got a split tank. One side's 290 gallons, the other side's 110. I'm actually filling up my small side right now. I filled up most of the big side yesterday. I have yet to put the actual chemicals in the tank itself. I'll probably be doing that tomorrow. But anyway, yeah, I just figured I'd hopefully answer a few questions you may have and let you know what it is I'm using. So this is not as important as the first round. Just give you an idea of the amounts. The first round use a whole lot more pre-emergent specifically. I also use atrazine, which is something that you don't want to use right now with the grass coming out of dormancy in that green up period. And I'd use, I think it was 2,4-diamine and my sticker, which is what I have out here as well. Obviously got three different things I'm using for this picker round. So the good news is this round is going to be more profitable for me than the round in January, February, that first round treatment that I did. So that's good. So a couple points I'll make, guys. First of all, you can see I got the label here in my hand, little pamphlet, little booklet that comes with each chemical that you use. I took this one off of the Resolute, prodiamine being the main chemical ingredient in this particular pre-emergent. I'm using a liquid version of Resolute. This go around, the first treatment round I used the WG, the wettable granular prodiamine version, which honestly is a little bit cheaper. I just ended up getting the liquid this time. So since I'm not going to be using as much again, especially when it comes to pre-emergent and other chemicals, not using atrazine, it is pretty expensive. The atrazine itself is pretty expensive. So yeah, this will be a very profitable round for me. So yeah, make sure you read your label, guys. It'll tell you pretty much everything you need to know. You don't necessarily have to know every little detail in this little booklet itself, but the important information pertaining to how many ounces per acre you need to put in your tank. Obviously, you're really not going to know that unless you've calibrated your spray tank and know how much you're actually spraying in terms of acreage. So for me, I've calculated, now it's not exact, but it's pretty close in the ballpark figure, but I've calculated my big side. I generally spray 4 ounces per tank for the 290 gallon side, and it's going to be pretty much equivalent for the smaller side, right around an acre and a quarter, an acre and a half, somewhere in there. Doesn't have to be exact, but you want to get pretty close. You want to be in the ballpark so you can determine the amount of ounces of chemicals to put in your solution. So now with me doing the WG version first, and now I'm doing the liquid version of prodiamine, it's a little bit different, which the label does tell you that you don't want to use more than 48 ounces an acre in a given year when it comes to prodiamine. Okay, so that's definitely something that you need to look out for, and that's why I'm using significantly less right now for this second round. That's the main reason why I'm using less. Number two is the fact that with the turf coming out of dormancy this time of year, March, April, especially when it starts warming up, the soil temperatures start creeping up. Start seeing that green growth come up. So yeah, if you do a significant amount of pre-emergent chemical in your solution, especially comparable to or at least what I did in my first round, it would significantly hamper that green up period. So that's generally why you want to come out with more in the first round than the second, because if you do do a significant amount in the second round, it's going to hamper that green up period. It's going to make it take longer to green up and look good in the spring and April when it really starts to grow, that kind of thing, guys. So yeah, those are two reasons why you don't want to put out as much in the second round, right? So again, I use atrazine in my first round. I'm not going to be using it now in this go around because it does especially affect the green up period. The atrazine, it's got some post and pre qualities to it, pre-emergent qualities to it, so that's good. And it's a restricted use pesticide as well. You hear a lot about it, when it comes to causing cancer and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of farmers use it and all that kind of thing in the crops and whatnot. But yeah, So I'm not using that. So that's obviously good. It'll make my round more profitable, like I said before. So yeah, this is Resolute 4L. It's a liquid version of pre-emergent. Gonna be a little more expensive, like I said before, than WG. I'll be using 14 ounces an acre in my spray tank. You know, so however you calibrate, you know, your spray tank per acre is what I use. Again, I know some people use per thousand. I just think per acre is easier when it comes to calibration. So yeah, I'll be using 14 ounces per acre in this round of the Prodiamine. I've got triplet. It's selective. You know, if your yards are fairly clean, you really don't have to use a selective necessarily, but I go ahead and use it anyway. It's not overly expensive. If I remember correctly, I think this 2.5 gallon jug here, and I'm gonna have to order some more, by the way, was around $150 for 2.5 gallon jug. So it's not going to cause your cost to really go up significantly. So I just prefer to go ahead and add that selective to my solution. If I pick up any new yards that may have a lot of weeds, you know, obviously that'll help, you know, control those weeds there, especially when it's in that early stage of development, you know, seedling stage or that first tubular stage of growth. You know, this is highly effective at knocking those out. Now, it's not going to triplet isn't going to affect the grassy weeds like poana around here. Poana is a very hardy weed. You really want to control it with a good pre-emergent. I use Spectacle Flow. It's pretty expensive in the fall, and it does a tremendous job controlling poana and other broadleaf weeds. You know, most of my yards are fairly clean, so that's good. I've been able to, you know, drive around, especially the ones that I mow, and notice, you know, that the majority of my yards are very clean. They don't have very little poana, so that's a good thing, because poana I'm not a fan of. But it's not going to kill poana, but any broadleaf weeds, henbit, wild garlic, you know, onions, burnweed, you know, all those typical broadleafs that you see in the South, it's very effective at. So yeah, and obviously I'll put the sticker in there. Yeah, I know some people might use dish soap. Obviously, if you're doing this for a living, you're probably going to buy a non-ionic surfactant. This is what I use. I think it's about $120 a jug here. So I'll use, I don't think I mentioned, I'll use 25 ounces an acre of the triplet in my solution. And I'll come back with, I think it's 48 ounces in the big side, and yeah, around 20 in the small side. I know a lot of people probably use a little bit more. I think it actually recommends you use a little bit more than that, but that's what I use, and it's been effective. I've noticed over the years using this particular solution here of chemicals that it works. So I'm going to keep doing that. Like I said, it'd probably tell you to put out a little bit more surfactant or use a little more surfactant in the solution itself. That's what I use, and it's determined to work. I've determined that it works, so that's what I'm going to keep doing. But anyway, yeah, pretty simplistic, guys. Just 3 things here. Yeah, a little more simplistic than the first round when I was using atrazine. I think I used the 2,4-D amine as well. So yeah, Prodiamine, triplet, and surfactant, you know, it's going to be highly profitable for me. One thing I want to point out, guys, let's see here. There's a couple things I want to mention before I forget. Yeah, so my area, you know, you're going to have Bermuda, zoysia, centipede, St. Augustine, all those warm season grasses. So I try to stay away from centipede and St. Augustine. I've got a couple of centipede yards that I treat, but the vast majority of them are, you know, Bermuda and zoysia. So yeah, I mean, you can use pretty much, yeah, you can use the same chemicals on both of those grass types. So you gotta, whatever area you're in, you know, this may not apply to your area, depending on the grass types. You know, especially if you're up north and, you know, dry, you know, using that. A lot of people have the, you know, the tall fescue and, you know, Kentucky bluegrass, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you could probably use Prodiamine specifically, but as far as the selectives, I'm not really sure. But this is highly effective in my area. In Alabama, South Central Alabama, Opelika, Alabama, Auburn. So this is what I've used over the years. Yeah, it's been effective. And like I said before, guys, if you want to know if your stuff is working, you know, solutions that you're working, if your treatments are working, you know, just look. You know, I mean, just how are your yards looking? Are you seeing a lot of weeds? Well, obviously, if you're seeing a lot of weeds, it's going to tell you that what you're using typically in the fall probably wasn't very effective. Now, like I said, I've already done my first round back in January, February, so having that down already in the ground, which is the majority of the pre-emergent I'll be using, especially compared to this round, you know, seeing those clean yards tells me that what I'm using is proving to be effective. So that's you new guys or young guys, if you're just starting out in spraying and treatments and fertilization, results will tell you if what you're using is working. And I've known, having used this this grouping here of chemicals over the years, which is what I've typically used in my second round over the last 3 or 4 years or so, it's proven to be effective. So I know this works. You're going to have to figure out exactly, like I said before, when it comes to calibration, how much you're going to use in your own tank, given certain factors to do the calibration. We'll have to do a video talking about that, and in case you got any questions about calibration, because that's a big deal there. But anyway, hey, listen, guys, I think that's pretty much it, in terms of what I'm using and the amounts I'm using, all that kind of stuff. Y'all let me know in the comments. I'm sure I forgot some stuff. Y'all got any kind of questions, I'll try my best to answer them. Spraying and fertilizing, guys, we're gonna do more videos talking about it, but it's very, very profitable. And frankly, it's a little bit easier than mowing. So I know a lot of people that have gotten out of mowing and just started just doing treatments and fertilization, because it is a little bit easier. You don't necessarily have to do it all year round, and frankly, it's a little more profitable too. You're just gonna have to get more yards to make up for the amount of times that you typically come by in a yard. If that makes sense compared to mowing, So yeah, y'all just let me know if you got any questions about this pick around, guys. Hope this is effective. Again, prodiamine is the pre-emergent triplet. Is selective. You don't necessarily have to use selective, but I would recommend going ahead and putting a little bit in there. It's not very, very costly, and it can knock out any of those weeds you can't really see. I just prefer my yards looking clean, especially before I get ready to fertilize in mid-April too. So really hoping to have all my treatments done, my second round of treatments for the 120, 125 yards properties that I treat, done by, say, April the 10th. And then shortly after that, I'll start fertilizing. So I'm really hoping that they'll be clean and stay that way through the summer, that kind of thing, guys. But anyway, hey, listen, hope this is helpful to you guys. Y'all let me know in the comments. Got any kind of questions? God bless you.